32 came. Now only 8 players remain, dreaming of becoming the king of snooker, the king of the Crucible, and the Betfred World Championship. Welcome everyone to Sheffield, where the business end of the game's biggest occasion is fast approaching. And talking of fast, quarter-final against Ronnie O'Sullivan. Mind you, with rapid breaks of 101, then 70, O'Sullivan quickly grabbed the lead at 2-1. Everything was looking rosy for O'Sullivan, who enjoys overwhelming superiority in previous head-to-heads against Williams, a fellow member of the famed class of 1992. Then, though, errors crept up on this unpredictable genius. So much so, in fact, that 3-time world champion Williams, canny and controlled as always, reeled off the following 4 frames.
5.
But you know, for the left-hander from Wales, the best was yet to come. Applying the icing on an especially sweet cake by firing in a 130 break in the closing frame of the session, Williams compounded O'Sullivan's problems and led 6-2 overnight. O'Sullivan captured the most recent of his 5 world titles in 2013, and after that will be hard-pressed to stay on course to end the drought. Was considered favourite to become the first player from continental Europe to grace a Crucible semi-final, but Anthony McGill from Scotland had alternative plans.
What?
While Maflin committed mistakes, McGill compiled breaks 53, 63, 78 and 92, and in the last frame of the afternoon stepped in with a superb 81 clearance. Sum and substance, McGill enjoys a commanding 7-1 advantage. At night, Kyren Wilson resumed with a 5-3 lead over Judd Trump, but in frame 9 was painfully reminded of that hackneyed cliché, snooker is a game of fractions. Trump pounced, and just before the interval had a golden chance to draw level at 6-6. Instead, the black refused to drop, and the crown of the defending champion sat even more uneasily after this delicate plant initiated Wilson's 94 break in frame 14. By now, Trump was under major pressure, and that manifested itself when, 2 frames later, Wilson impressively powered to 10-6. By losing the opening 5 frames against Mark Selby, Australia's Neil Robertson desperately tried to cling onto his coattails and edged frame 13 on a respotted black. But every department of Selby's game was formidable, and he surged away into an 11-5 lead, only 2 frames short of a semi-final against Williams or O'Sullivan. On this form, Selby's 4th Crucible triumph could be in the offing. So there you have it, an eventful day 11 of the Trump was the target man. Kyren Wilson craved his crown. Kurt Maflin and Anthony McGill were chasing their biggest payday. Mark Williams has climbed the mountain before. So too Ronnie O'Sullivan. The name of Neil Robertson is engraved on the coveted silverware. Is where we start our Day 12 highlights package from the Betfred World Championship. What a fluke from Robertson, trying to fight back from nowhere. He rallied from 11-5 down against Martin Gould in 2010 and went on to capture the title. But for the Thunder from Down Under,
Robertson,
lightning
53.
did not strike twice, as Selby set about clearing up in frame 20.
26.
In the end, this black off its spot stood between Selby and securing a comfortable 13-7 victory to reach Crucible semi-final number 6. This season's English and Scottish Open champion justifiably pleased with both his performance and being through to the last 4.
To be great. Obviously no fans, which is a shame, but obviously it's still the semi-final of the World Championship.
Kyren Wilson, 10-6. The crown of Judd Trump was slipping. But in this, snooker's Game of Thrones, last year's king of the Crucible didn't surrender without pride and precise potting, as breaks of 72, 100 and 62 delayed Wilson's celebrations. After that daring attempt though, winter was coming. At least the title holder was about to be frozen out. You see, Wilson crossed the line in fine style, reserving his best contribution of the match for last. A run of 104 to prevail 13-9 against his great rival.
Kyren Wilson, 104, frame match.
A phenomenal run, really held himself well as a world champion. I knew I'd have my hands full, and I knew he'd come sort of all guns blazing from 10-6 down today. So
At lead, Anthony McGill was determined to keep Norway's Kurt Maflin at bay.
67.
But Lady Luck intervened on Maflin's behalf in frame 15, even though he still ended the morning session 10-6 adrift. This, a candidate for fluke of the championship so far.
29.
That quizzical expression spoke volumes. Maflin stayed stubborn and rallied to within a couple of frames, but McGill held firm, playing a solid frame under mounting pressure to prevail 13-10 and proudly book his World Championship semi-final debut. When Ronnie O'Sullivan fell 7-2 in arrears against Mark Williams, the outlook was bleak, but the Rocket then left the launch pad. O'Sullivan put together a pair of centuries in roaring back onto level terms at 8-8. This terrific red opening the door to his 133 clearance in frame 22 and a 12-10 advantage. But on the verge of victory, O'Sullivan faltered. It went to a respotted black, and the 5-time world champion had first chance. What relief for O'Sullivan, a 13-10 winner, and into a record-equalling 12th Crucible semi-final.
Areas of the game that I was struggling with and was fighting, but you know, I tried to sort of find parts of my game that were okay and try to, you know, maximise all the opportunities when them opportunities arise, you know. But yeah, it was tough.
So there you have it. An Elite 8 has been distilled into a fabulous 4. 3 Englishmen and a Scot left standing in the Betfred World Championship, still in pursuit of a £500,000 first prize and snooker immortality. This year's Crucible semi-finals are to savour. This was the day when 2 became 1. Tables, that is. Reached the last 4 of the Betfred World Championship, and one elevation in status is certain, being centre stage at snooker's most revered venue, Sheffield's Crucible Theatre. And we start our semi-final highlights with Kyren Wilson, pitted against a newcomer to all of this, Anthony McGill, totally at ease, nevertheless, firing in breaks of 83 and 78 to smartly set the tone. McGill, a surprise package qualifier, is known for his tactical acumen, and that paid a rich dividend towards the tail end of the third frame. Wilson did hit the green, escaping a snooker, only to leave it over a pocket, and McGill needed no further invitation to steal 3-0. In fact, 6-1 was looming until the Scot suffered a distinct case of the blues. Relieved Wilson, arguably the finest player on the tour, employing the rest, was able to salvage the frame, and many thought turning point. The many were mistaken though, as McGill dismissed his setback, and with a superb 92 break, ended the first session of this marathon race to 17 with a very pleasing 6-2 advantage. Pleasing for his millions of fans around the world, Ronnie O'Sullivan's potting in the early exchanges against Mark Selby. In each of the first 2 largely scrappy frames, stroking in the last red from distance greatly helped O'Sullivan's cause. All indications pointed to the Rocket being in the mood and motivated. More than half the battle with him. Selby was on the double twice in the third frame. Initially, this inventive cross double.
1.
Then, on the green, what they call a cocked hat double, opened his account. O'Sullivan already required a snooker, but after that,
3.
conceded. And yet it was an unwanted double, namely a double kiss playing safe, that cost the 3-time world champion dear in the next, as 5-time champion O'Sullivan pounced with a silky break of 85 to lead 3-1. This tricky red to a semi-blind pocket
37.
undoubtedly the linchpin ball. It was basically more of the same from O'Sullivan in frame 5, during runs of 51 and 79, before ever stubborn Selby displayed his tenacious fighting qualities and cue ball control in closing the gap. The run of 58 that gave O'Sullivan his 5-2 lead wasn't the biggest break of the session, but crammed with low-value colours, it was the hardest working. Perhaps the most important part, Selby's tough last red to launch the clearance that enabled him to limit overnight arrears to a manageable. We've seen intriguing introductions to both semi-finals, and rest assured, they will gather momentum as the incomparable Crucible comes alive again tomorrow. First awarded in 1927, it's the trophy prized above all others by snooker players across the planet. And these semi-finalists were desperate to go one step Betfred World Championship. Indeed, the determination of Anthony McGill was palpable as he rallied from 3 frames adrift to all square with Kyren Wilson. Then though, Lady Luck deserted him.
Anthony McGill won.
But in the form of his life, McGill refused to dwell on such cruelty and coolly regained the lead at 16-15 as Dame Fortune finally came to his assistance.
1.
Almost inevitably though, Wilson responded, forcing this epic tussle its full distance. Twists and turns were myriad in a Freaky Friday decider, but when McGill judged this to perfection, the qualifier stood on the verge of a dream victory. But wait a minute, Lady Luck is a fickle mistress and changed her mind.
10.
Not only thwarting McGill, but actively flirting with his opponent. This outrageous fluke left McGill requiring a snooker, and try as he might, it proved elusive.
3.
Wilson threw 17-16, final frame score a record-breaking 103 to 83. If you thought Ronnie O'Sullivan and Mark Selby would have trouble following that, think again, even though the balls didn't always behave for the Rocket. As always, Selby was competitive granite, inflicting a true hammer blow by stealing that frame on the pink in typical measured fashion. And despite flashes of brilliance from the ambidextrous O'Sullivan, Selby established a 16-14 lead. O'Sullivan appeared out of patience and frankly on his way out of the championship. Conventional shot selection and discipline disintegrated into hit-and-hope lunges, but on the brink of defeat, genius emerged to turn the tables. From not one, but 2 reds, as daring as they were outstanding, O'Sullivan compiled breaks of 138, a total clearance, and 71 before taking control of the decider with a run of 64, made possible by this sweetly cued initial red. As you might expect, Selby, watched by wife Vicky, countered with excellence of his own, but couldn't prevent O'Sullivan having the last red, effectively for the match. O'Sullivan prevails 17-16, never fails to amaze, and will now grace his 7th World Final at the age of 44. The grand old Crucible Theatre has delivered yet again. In this case, quite simply, 2 of the finest semi-finals this, the Betfred World Championship, has ever witnessed. Competing at the Crucible Theatre in without question the biggest match of the snooker year, Kyren Wilson up against the one and only Ronnie O'Sullivan. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Sheffield, and welcome to the climax of the Betfred World Championship. First prize, £500,000. Wilson was in uncharted territory and looked edgy from the very beginning. However, O'Sullivan, appearing in his record-equalling 90th match at the game's most famous venue, wasn't immune to mistakes either. That Jord Brown cost him
Ronnie
a 2-0 lead,
11.
as Wilson, very much the outsider in the sponsors' pre-match betting, stole the frame on on the black. But O'Sullivan made an 80 break in the third, then 75 in the fourth, after Wilson, normally outstanding with the rest, surprisingly erred. Wilson did run 63 in frame 5, but, fueled by some out-of-this-world pots, the Rocket moved 5-2 in front, putting together a 106 break, his 179th century, just at the Crucible over the years. If anything though, the loss of the afternoon's last frame hurt Wilson even more. After that testing pink went astray, O'Sullivan took his time, sank it under pressure, dropped perfectly on the black, and exited the stage, enjoying a commanding 6-2 advantage. The opening frame of the evening also went down to the wire, and O'Sullivan was equal to the task, completing a vintage 49 clearance full of tough pots. Although not at his best, the Rocket then swelled his lead to a comprehensive 8-2, before Wilson, at last, found his range. That trademark red initiated a morale-boosting run of 92, and when O'Sullivan frustrated himself by missing 2 pots across the top cushion, the gap shrank to 8-4.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, 40.
Confidence growing all the time, while that of his opponent waned, Wilson accounted for the next 2 frames as well.
20.
Before cruel luck intervened. Avert your eyes, Wilson fans, because this is painful to watch.
Foul. Kyren Wilson.
That was the turning point of frame 15, as a grateful O'Sullivan stemmed the Wilson tide with a 48 break to lead 9-6. Wilson refused to dwell, and his 8th century of the championship again had him breathing down the neck of the struggling 5-time Sheffield Supremo. Indeed, Wilson's overnight deficit should have been just a single frame, but in the nightcap, missing the last red proved oh so costly, as a relieved O'Sullivan had to think for a 10-7 cushion. O'Sullivan somehow occupying the below his brilliant best. On this evidence, only one thing's certain. The 17th and closing day of this year's Betfred World Championship will be pure theatre. At the Crucible, of course. The Crucible, a special place anytime, but it's never more alive than on the final day of the Betfred World Championship, where this year Kyren Wilson had to contend with Ronnie O'Sullivan in order to claim Snooker's ultimate prize, this historic trophy. He was desperate for a positive restart and got one, a 73 break launched by that terrific rare. Wilson very much in the battle, but O'Sullivan was very much in luck early in the day's second frame. From there he made 53, but Wilson could have stolen it, until failing to sink the pink. What a blow for the underdog, and with O'Sullivan's technical gremlins now a thing of the past, a one-way system was introduced on the Rocket's road to a 6th world title and a £500,000 first prize. Unlike Wilson, the 44-year-old was in the pink as he drew ever nearer to becoming the oldest Crucible kingpin since Ray Reardon, who was 45 in 1978. Frame after frame fell to O'Sullivan. The onlooking Wilson family couldn't hide their disappointment, as the object of their love and support went from bad to worse, even using his beloved rest. This was by now a landslide, as with a 72 break, dominant O'Sullivan relentlessly pressed home the advantage. A record-breaking 37th world ranking title was at O'Sullivan's fingertips, a remarkable 27 years after his first as a teenager at the 1993 UK Championship. O'Sullivan was flying, a deflated Wilson utterly spent, and when he jawed this black, O'Sullivan led 17-8, requiring only one more frame for glory.
Kyren Wilson, 7.
They resumed at night, yet still finished in the light. O'Sullivan was keen to wrap up a vintage championship in grand style, and did precisely that, firing in a rapid 96 break to cross the line on an 8-frame winning streak, prevailing 18-8. Exciting, entertaining and evergreen, the longevity of O'Sullivan's record-shattering career is simply staggering. On his debut in snooker's showpiece occasion, Wilson just couldn't keep pace with the veteran, who's now celebrated Crucible victories in 3 different decades. O'Sullivan was the opposite of feeling blue. In fact, he was feeling $1 million, having been on the money when it mattered most. What a true sporting great, a master of his profession like no other.
Got to be up there, you know. It's great to be able to win over the 17 days here. You know, you come here, you got to play a lot of solid shots and be solid in all departments. And you know, even though I might not.
20 Betfred World Snooker Champion.
O'Sullivan reacquainted with snooker's most coveted silverware for the first time in 7 years. The incomparable rocket in orbit again.
There's nothing left here. If you could see me now, struggling, as a snow falls, as a steel, as a sound. There's nothing in between. You and me now. There's something in